Now it's time for my first guest on today's show. What an action-packed show we've got. I am so excited. So let's say hello. The first time I've ever spoke to him as well. So really, really excited. Let's say hello to Mr. Ritchie Neville. Hello.
Hey there. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, no complaints. Just been feeding the troops this morning. All the kids are, getting their healthy breakfast, bit of fruit and whatnot.
So how's everything going with you? Everything going good?
Everything is absolutely fantastic. Well, number one, the weather's been pretty good, hasn't it? You know, we went from the beast of the east and all of a sudden it came rosy and it's been lovely. So, yeah, it's just nice to whack a pair of shorts on and feel the air on your skin and, get out in the garden and whatnot. So that's been really nice. And yeah, good in the garden as well. We've been, travelling around. We've been busy. There's festivals and gigs and tours and stuff. So, yeah, everything's done really, really well, thank you.
So going back to the very beginning, obviously Five, one of the biggest bands ever. So how did you get the part in the band? Did you have to audition?
Yeah, it was an audition kind of thing. It was a case of the people who originally put the Spice Girls together decided they wanted to do it with guys.
Yeah.
And they... the media sort of caught hold of it, and I ended up in a little bit of a circus for a little while. It was almost like a precursor to X Factor in a way. The whole thing was filmed, and the trouble was, once we were decided and we got in via that process, we were a little bit too X-rated behind the scenes for them to ever use any of the footage. Yeah, kind of funny. They sort of ditched the TV idea and just went, look, let's just release them as a band. But yeah, it was an audition. Yeah.
So how did you cope with suddenly going from the unknown to being thrown in the spotlight? Because it must be so intense with the demands that you would have had to suddenly be having thousands of fans screaming at you and being thrown in that limelight. So how did you cope with it?
Yeah, look, it is, and, certainly at such a young age, I was 17. Sean was 15. So, yeah, it was crazy. To begin with, you start getting sort of recognised, and, there's a bit of a buzz to it. Oh, people recognise my face, and I always say Fame was fun. Fame was really fun for 6 months. And then after 6 months, you sort of start, you can't leave the house. This doesn't have an off switch, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you just, certainly in that, when you're in the band and there's that mass hysteria, schoolgirls screaming if they see you and, all of that kind of stuff, you would like just a break from it sometimes. You feel like you can't breathe a little bit. It's like, I can't go anywhere and just have a bit of peace, So it can kind of you a little bit,
And did at any point during that process, did you kind of sit down and think, do you know what, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I don't think this is for me. Did those thoughts ever go through your mind?
No, I knew that it was, nothing ever sort of stays the same forever. And I knew, I suppose, maybe that it would change or whatever. No, it was more just an endurance test, really. Because that was just one side of it. It was more... as well, the workload, people always see you as, in your music videos where you're, what I call selling a dream, you're smiling and you're dancing and it's all brilliant. But behind the scenes, you're working 18-hour days, you're flying around the world, which sounds like fun, but you don't get to see any of it. You just fly, you get to a hotel, you do full-on shoots and this and that and the other, and, you do end up... I've never been as tired as I was in those days. So, that in that sense, it's just a case of getting through it.
And I guess for you kind of can relate to people like One Direction and other boy bands that are out there, what they're going through, because obviously they've had the same process. They've gone on the X Factor. They were suddenly chucked in the limelight. And I guess the industry is different now, because back in the day, you wouldn't have had Twitter and the social networking aspect of things and the streaming.
Twitter would have got us into trouble, no doubt. I'm absolutely certain of that, and I'm glad it wasn't around when we were out, because I know for a fact, like, give us sort of a long day, and then we get on, say, some vodka or something. Silly things would have been tweeted, completely unprofessional, and we'd have done. I don't know what I mean. God forbid. I dread to think what we would have put out on our social media, but it wouldn't have been pretty. So I, like I said, I am happy. But going back to what you said about One Direction, a lot of the same team worked with us that worked with them.
Okay.
So when we were playing V Festival a few years ago, I bumped into, he was actually the head of our record label in Europe, but he manages One Direction. And I actually had a question for him because, you look at our shoots and our pictures and you can see the transition from sort of a fresh-faced young individual to somebody who, or a bunch of guys even, that are really, really tired. You can see it in your eyes and stuff like that. Whereas I look at One Direction and pictures and I was like, they still look quite fresh, they still look. So I said, look, it was something because, it was something that was big to me. I said, how have you kept them looking so fresh? And they said, oh, well, he said, in all honesty, we learnt from your generation of bands. People have a limit that they can take. And we wanted to go for the longevity. So if they work a month, they get 2 weeks off. They go and see their family. We get 1 day off in 2 years.
Wow.
So, so that's how they kept them going as long as they did and kept them sort of fresh and kind of keen to do it.
And originally, when it was announced that the band that they would split up, what went through your mind? Did you all anticipate that you were going to go on to have solo careers? Because that must have been crazy for you, because everything's up in the air.
Well, yeah. Like I said, you go from such an intense work schedule to tumbleweeds. Nothing's going on. You've got to be your own sort of motivator and whatnot. For me personally, I came out and I did go in the studio. Simon Cowell wanted to turn me into a ballad singing sort of one-man Westlife, and that didn't sit right for me. I've got a bit too much like rock in my soul and sort of dance music and whatnot. I just feel uncomfortable about it. And I had a moment, he was getting me in the studio and stuff like that. And I came home and I listened to a couple of the songs that I'd recorded. And I just thought, I've personally, on my own, got to walk out in front of lots of people and, if you like, look the audience in the eye like I mean this. And it just doesn't, I don't mean it. Do you know what I mean? It's not for me. We parted ways nicely. There was no fallout or anything. And then I just realised, I think, I was just emotionally burnt out after 5 years. From such a young age. The band was finished when I was, 21, 22.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it since I was 17. I just needed to go and find who Rich was again, And so, I sort of half-heartedly made some rock tunes. I did a uni tour and then, I think somebody ripped me off for a bit of money and I went, I hate this industry. I just need a break from it. And stepped away for about 10 years in the end, possibly even more.
And a lot of people, or you always hear people ask, a band like Five and a lot of others out there, they're huge for so many years, and suddenly, you don't hear from them, but you don't hear from the acts and the members of the bands. Everything's just gone quiet. They're not working anymore. They've ran out of money. So how do you cope with having all that money, all that fame, all that success to suddenly, oh, my phone's not ringing, I'm not getting any calls? Because that must be hard to deal with as well.
I purposely hermited. I took myself out of it and sort of moved to the countryside, and that I did that sort of consciously and unconsciously, if you know what I mean. Look, it is a long way to sort of, it's a very big contrast, but one that was needed. I feel a lot happier in myself now for that. I don't really know what I would have done if I had my heart in it. But I suppose the point was I wasn't together enough as a person at the time to have my heart fully into achieving a goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I needed to just get out for my soul, if you like, and just go, okay, what's important? What's actually important? Which is, I'm glad I did.
And what's your opinion on the industry now? Because obviously we've got acts like Little Mix, for example. Do you think with the way that you've got social networking, do you think they will go on forever, or they too in a few years, they will disband and things will go quiet for them? Do you think it's changed now?
No, nothing lasts forever. You might get bands that go on for a little longer and things like that, but I think there comes a point in most people's lives, and especially that you've got maybe solo artists, because it's only them and their mind and what they want. But when you've got 4 or 5 people, inevitably, eventually, somebody goes, you know what, we've done this, we've had a great time, it's been brilliant, I just fancy doing something different, And even like, especially, I suppose you mentioned Little Mix, for girls, often they'll be, it's time in my life that I want to have a baby. That doesn't mean they have to leave the band or leave their work and stuff like that, but just things come along, and become more important. So who knows, maybe they can. I'm not saying they can't. If they're all in the same mindset and they want to carry on, why not? There's no reason, but I would imagine that they wouldn't. Eventually, somebody, they'll just decide to go their separate ways or whatever it is,
And as a band, you burst back on our screens on the big reunion, and I was absolutely addicted to the show because it just felt like the right time. Everyone got their love back again. For 5, we remembered all the songs, and same for the other bands that were on it. Did you love being part of that? Because that, again, you were chucked back in the limelight. You were doing big tours, big interviews, big television shows. Did you enjoy having that back again?
Do you know what? It was lovely for many reasons. I think I was living in Australia at the time.
Yeah.
Just one second. I was living in Australia at the time, and I was only really coming over to do the big reunion, and kind of that was it. And I hadn't been on stage in 10 years, which, for me, growing up, I was very much a sort of, I was always doing something on stage, whether that was with my rock band or, down the church hall, or whether that was like with something with school, and I was in plays and stuff, and I had no problem with it. Stage fright was never a problem for me. For the first time in my life ever, I had stage fright. That first gig, the nerves were just immense, and I almost froze when I heard that I was behind the doors that opened, and the VTs going off the screens, and they're introducing us and stuff. And I actually looked left and right, and I thought, is there any possible way I can get out of this and run? And I knew there wasn't. And then the song kicked in, and thankfully I brought the mic up to my mouth, and sound came out. So that was an interesting one to have to go through that. But other than that, it was lovely. A lot of, I hadn't seen Sean in years. Yeah. It was like a bomb that exploded when we broke up, and I think we were all searching for ourselves, and we were just all a bit emotionally drained. And like I spoke about in the big reunion, there was also like a constantly together in a often the atmosphere wasn't always great interpersonally with a few of the band and stuff, and it just grinded us down, and we all just went off to kind of find ourselves and do what we did. And I don't know, Scott was having lots of children and that kind of stuff, so it was really nice to get back and get to know the guys again, under a sort of the same yet different experience. And that's one of my greatest blessings, because certainly with Sean and Scott, we had such an intense time, we had such an intense experience back in the day, and it's been so nice. We now are such good friends. We get our children together wherever we can, and that's the real beauty of the big reunion that brought us kind of back in touch, and has kept us doing shows and stuff.
And you're just saying there, obviously, about the nerves when it came to going on the stage. But I guess as soon as you hear the eruption from the crowd, you must just feed off that adrenaline, and that kind of must make you think, do you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm in the zone.
Oh, now. My preparation, it might be very different to other people, and I guess you could say it's a very male-orientated way of doing it. But we have upbeat tunes, we have rocky tunes, and I pace up and down, I get very intense before I go on stage. And it's almost like like Gladiator with Russell Crowe, when he's like, he's talking to his army and he's going, when I give the command, unleash hell. I sort of treat it like I'm going to war or something. I'm like, come on, we're going to go out there, we're going to rock it, like, that's what's going on in my head. And I know some girls are like, oh yeah, I just love the crowd and I want, I'm like, I'm going to mess you up.
And you're ready for it then.
Oh, I love it. I love it, and there's, like you said, there's nothing like that interaction. The more a crowd gives you, the more you give them.
Yeah,
and it's just a natural thing that, it just happens that way. And it is, I do feel very, very privileged to have a job where I can feed off that energy and make people happy. I mean, it's fantastic.
And I know since the big reunion, Abs left the band, which leaves you as a free piece. Was that sad for you when he announced that he was leaving?
Of course, and really, really out of the blue. He didn't call us or email us. He just put something out on Twitter. We were like, that's odd. Does he mean it? Because we had a show, a big festival show, 25,000 people were waiting for us in Holland, Amsterdam or Rotterdam or something. And, so, we tried to put calls in. He wouldn't answer the calls, and that was that.
Wow.
So, and you know what? We haven't ever spoken since.
That's a shame as well. That with everything that you've been through, it's a shame that there wasn't that call to say, look, guys, I'm stepping away from this. I've enjoyed being back, but it's not right for me now. Just to kind of leave it there, that must have been hard for you, because I guess you thought you were all close friends. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, look, Abs is certainly a quirky character, and it's no secret, that he's obviously had some demons himself, and the Abs you see on reality TV when he's in entertainment mode isn't always necessarily the Abs you see behind the scenes. Because I watch his stuff and he is really funny. Like, he cracks me up. Like, when he's in a funny mood, he is really, really funny. And he's like out there funny, which I like. I like the Mighty Boosh and stuff like that, like that's my sense of humour. So in that respect, it is a shame, because we have had a lot of laughs, and, but look, at the end of the day, he didn't want to be there. He was sometimes on stage with his head down, and we were getting tweets off fans saying, like, this is a disgrace. Why is he not giving us, what we came to see? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think he just made that call. He was like, look, my heart's not in it. I don't want to be there. And, he wanted to do his own thing. So the best of luck to him.
We've just had a lovely text come through from your agent, Sue, who said, what a lovely interview. So that's good. Sue's listening.
Hi, Sue.
So what's next for you now? What upcoming projects are you working on?
Well, I've got a little solo project that I've been working on for a little while. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm going to take over the world and be number one, but it's just a labour of love. I've wanted to make some music finally, and I've got in with some great producers, sort of near where I live. And, we've just been slowly bubbling some tunes out. They're near completion now, so we'll see what we're going to do with those. And yeah, like always touring and gigging with the boys, festivals and all that kind of stuff, which is great fun. We've got an arena tour coming up later in the year with Peter Andre.
Ooh.
And yeah, I can't say Peter Andre without doing that. I don't know why it is, but yeah, obviously we know Pete. We've known Pete for years. And there are a few other acts which escapes me, because we've got an Australian tour coming next year, which we've got a multi lineup as well there. So lots and lots of lovely things. In between that, I'm a very dedicated father. I've inherited 2 as well. So there's 3 kids, 3, 4, and 9. So they certainly keep you busy. And yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, busy.
Well, Ritchie, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for being so open and so honest. And you're always welcome here, because I know radio is something that you're looking into as well. So if you ever want to come here and present a show with me, it'll be an absolute honour. And it's been brilliant having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much, mate. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
very much. Bye-bye.